stop just taking practice test after practice test, just grinding away, just hoping that that'll just automatically raise your SAT score. I mean, it'll help a little bit. And hey, I get some people do report that that's all it took for them to get a 1600 or whatever. They just kept grinding more practice tests, grinding Khan Academy. This isn't for those people who everything just worked out so great for. This is a video for people who have tried the grinding approach and it didn't really do all that much for that. Maybe it helped you increase it a little bit, but again, you're trying to dominate this test over here. This is for people who do well in math at school, understand the math concepts, but for some reason, some mysterious reason, you're just not getting those scores that dominate. You're not really leveling up. You're not getting the scores that you know you should be getting in your heart. What you got to do is actually take an inventory of your practice tests each time you take them. Don't just look over the errors real quick and say, oh, okay, that was a stupid mistake. I hate that phrase, stupid mistake, by the way. We'll talk about that later. And it's not because I don't want you to call yourself stupid. It's nothing for anything silly like that. I'm fine with you calling yourself stupid. It's just that it's not a helpful way to analyze what's going on here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What you want to do is you want to look at your errors. You want to look at the practice tests that you just took, okay? You want to look at your errors. You want to look at what went wrong. And you want to actually ask yourself, what did I do wrong here? And what can I do differently next time to prevent this from happening? What kind of a question was this? How can I recognize this question in the future? These are questions that you want to ask yourself for every single question that you get wrong. It needs to always be clear what the takeaway from each wrong answer is. And it's not just, oh, I guess I just won't make that stupid mistake next. Okay, these stupid mistakes. Let's talk about that now. Just the other day, I was talking to one of my students, and we were talking about this math question that they got wrong. And what was it? Well, here's what happened. They didn't do some converting or something. I think it was feet to inches or inches to feet, whatever. By the way, any problem that's about distance or time, you should always be double checking the units. Make that a part of your mental checklist that you just have before finalizing your answer, if it's a problem about distance and time. Probably talk about that in another video someday, the mental checklist I want you to develop before finalizing your answers. But, yeah, they'd forgotten to do some converting or something, and then they got an answer that wasn't in the choices. But there was an answer that was pretty close to their answer. You know what they did? They just picked the answer that was closest to their answer. So they got an answer that was not in the choices. And when they saw that, they just picked the closest thing. What do you think about that? This is a multiple choice test for the most part. I know there's those student-produced responses or whatever. Let's focus on the multiple choice part for now. If they give you the possible answers there, it means your answer needs to be the same as one of those answers. What a gift they're giving you with these multiple choice answers, right? What a gift that is. Because if you don't see your answer in the choices, you know something went wrong. And that's your cue to go back into your steps, reread the question, make sure you didn't miss anything, look at all your steps, maybe redo the calculations, because you know something went wrong somewhere. So you know it's time to find out what that was. And I asked my student, well, what was your mistake here? And they said, oh, well, I didn't convert. I didn't convert feet to inches, whatever it was. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess that's one way to look at it. But what's our plan going forward now? Like, what are you going to do differently next time? The plan can't be, oh, I just won't make that mistake again. Because I got news for you. You're going to make mistakes, okay? The goal is not for you to never make mistakes again, because that's a ridiculous goal and it's impossible to achieve. If you're someone who's watching this video, if you're someone who finds it easy to make the plan B, never make a mistake again, and then you get an 800, you're probably not watching this. So the plan can't be just to not make that mistake again, right? It's an obvious, easy mistake to make. That's why they write questions the way they do. Because there are these easy traps to fall into. The mistake that my student made was not the initial messing up a conversion or whatever. The mistake was not going back to double check things when it was clear that something had gone wrong. The answer was not in the choices. And so what that means is something went wrong. And that's your cue to go back and reread the question. Go back, double check all the calculations. Go back, double check what the final question was asking. Maybe something went wrong there. I don't know. That's what you want to be doing. You want to be thinking about what you could have done differently to prevent getting that question wrong. What to do differently next time you see a question like this. And what like this, like what kind of a question is this in the first place? So that's what you want to ask yourself. As you're going through your errors, you want to take a look in the mirror as you're looking at the practice test. You want to have a mirror there as well. And I want you to look deep into your soul, and I want you to really ask yourself, well, what could I have been doing differently to prevent this kind of mistake? Maybe it's being a little more careful with calculations. Maybe for certain types of questions, it means going back and rereading the question. Maybe you always make negative sign errors. And by the way, that's also what you're doing as you look through these practice tests, is you're trying to get a feel for what your patterns of errors are. We all have our patterns. We all have our types of mistakes we tend to make. I know that a lot of you, when you look over your practice tests, it always seems like, oh, it's always a new kind of error. It's always something different. No, it's not. Okay? You're just not really looking for the patterns. That's what I want you to do. I want you to look over the ones you get wrong and try to find some themes of your errors. What kinds of errors are they? Are they as simple as just conceptual errors? Like, do you just need to study some certain math concepts? Probably not. That's probably not your problem, but maybe it is, and easy fix, right? Just whatever, watch some videos that go over those concepts. Maybe it's always like a reading mistake. I mean, that's something else to keep in mind about this test. it's a secret reading test. I mean, sure, there's the reading section of the SAT, but I'm talking about the math section. I'm talking about how it's a secret reading test as well. So maybe your errors are reading errors that you're making. And if so, is it always the same type of word problem where the error is happening? Or sometimes is it only one type of word problem? I don't know. But that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. You want to take a look at your errors. You want to take a good look in the mirror. You want to kind of categorize them. Categorize the errors here. Like, what types of errors are you making for what types of questions? And what did you actually do that was wrong? Like, what was the real mistake that you made? Okay? And there's a difference between the mistake and the result of the mistake. I'm more interested in the mistake. For example, a result of a mistake could look something like, oh, I forgot about the negative sign. I dropped a negative sign there, which is a classic one, by the way, negative sign mix-ups. Such a common reason people get questions wrong by forgetting about certain negative signs, dropping them, forgetting that a double negative becomes a positive, whatever. And a lot of times when I ask my students, well, what was the mistake here? They'll say something like that, like, oh, well, I dropped a negative sign. And I'll look at their work and I'll see that they didn't really write that much down because they were doing it in their heads. Because they're so smart, right? Oh, yeah, you're such a smart math student. You can do things in your head, right? How great. How great for you that you can do so much math in your head. Well, you're getting the questions wrong, okay? You're not getting an 800, are you? So you're not that smart, are you? Just because you're able to get away with that BS in math class, where the questions are more straightforward, where you know in advance what concepts the test is going to be on, so you have your brain already wired in the direction of systems of equations or geometry or whatever. Just because when you take a math test at school, it's the only test you've taken that day, maybe? Or maybe you took a test earlier in the day, but in between you had lunch and you were resting. On the SAT, you're taking a math section after you've already been there for like, I don't know, an hour, at least an hour. Depending on what version of test you're taking, too. Digital or paper. So you can't really trust your brain to be doing the same kind of like doing things in your head that you may feel like you're used to. Okay, this is getting a little on a tangent here, but my point is, going back to that student who had the drop the negative sign. That was the result of their mistake. Their mistake was not writing all their steps out clearly on the paper. It's a lot harder to forget about a negative sign when it's staring you in the face right there. So write out all your steps. That's what you want to be doing. You want to be looking at the way you did these problems and looking for things you could have done better. Maybe it's rereading the question before finalizing your answer. Maybe it's writing out more steps. Maybe it's, if it's a problem that involves negative signs, I always go back and check all the negative signs. If it's a geometry problem, maybe I always double check that I'm using the right formula because I've noticed I've used the wrong formula a couple of times, so I'm adding that double check the formula to my mental checklist for this type of problem. You want to become really acquainted with your tendencies, the types of errors you tend to make, your patterns. Because we all have our patterns of errors, and they're not going anywhere without some actual awareness. Don't just dismiss mistakes you're making as stupid mistakes or silly mistakes. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? You don't want to be doing that. First of all, it's not super good for your confidence to be calling yourself stupid all the time. I know earlier I said that I don't care about you calling yourself stupid. I do. But not for some, like, fantasy reason, not just because it doesn't feel, not because I just want you to be nice. It's because if you are lowering your confidence by calling yourself stupid, you're not going to be able to achieve the kind of momentum that is necessary to dominate this test. It's also a test of your ability to manage your own anxieties and neuroses. That's another secret test that's going on the SAT. How in control of your emotions are you? Are you going to freak out when you get a math question that you don't automatically know how to do? If you do freak out, how are you going to respond to that freaking out? So you want to be able to manage that anxiety. And the fuel for managing that anxiety is confidence, is optimism. And you're not going to be generating confidence by calling yourself stupid all the time and calling your mistakes stupid all the time. So that's one reason I don't like this whole term stupid mistake. So that should never be the takeaway from a question that you go over. Oh, this is just a stupid mistake. Another reason I don't like it is because it dismisses the mistake as a kind of a one-off. It makes it seem like, oh, well, this was just some one-time mistake there. I understand why you should have the negative signs in there. I get it, so I don't even need to think about this. You are depriving yourself of an opportunity to actually level up when you do that. When you dismiss a mistake as a silly mistake or a stupid mistake, you're denying yourself the opportunity to improve. You need to have an appreciation for the logic that led you to that mistake. You didn't just make the mistake randomly. There were things that you were doing that led to the mistake happening. And it's up to you to figure out what those things you were doing were, pinpoint where the real mistake was. Not the result of the mistake, not getting the wrong answer, getting the wrong number, but what's the actual mistake that you were making in action? And you need to figure out what you're going to do to prevent that mistake in the future. What it often comes down to is, what habit do I need to build? And what habit do I need to break? Sometimes there are some bad habits that we have that we need to break. Sometimes there are some good habits we don't have that we need to build. These are the questions you want to ask yourself. So as you're going through your errors, I want you to ask yourself, okay, well, first of all, what kind of a question is this? Because I want to be able to recognize it in the future. 2, what did I do wrong this time? Like, what was the actual thing I did wrong that led to this mistake happening? Did I not reread the question when I should have? Was I not writing out all my steps? Was I not double checking what the formula is? You want to have it as something that you can clearly do differently next time, because that's the third question you want to ask yourself. What can I do differently next time I see a question like this to lower the chances of me making that mistake? Did I forget about one of the shortcut strategies? Anyways, I'm going to be making a lot of videos here on this channel. I'm trying this out. My name's Coach Dalton. I've been teaching the SAT and the ACT for over a decade. I'm going to try to be releasing videos every day. We'll see what happens. I think tomorrow I want to make one about circles. Anyways, I know that this video, a lot of it might be a bit abstract. I'm going to sort of refine the way I communicate these concepts. If you have any questions about how to really apply what I'm talking about to your situation, you can always apply to work with me. Coach Dalton Foster at gmail.com. You can find me there. Anyways, follow, subscribe, for more, if you want to catch some more of these videos, I want to share my my expertise with y'all.